Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the interview. Today, my guest will be Rachel Murphy. Rachel, could you tell us a couple of words about yourself?
I can. Thanks for the interview, Chris. So my name is Rachel Murphy. I'm the CEO of Difrent. My background is 22 years as an interim manager, working across public and private sector, and probably the last 10 years has been public sector across central government and NHS. 3 years ago, I built a company called Difrent, and we deliver services for public good organisations.
And you happen to use Wordley mapping, don't you?
I certainly do. So I met Simon probably 8 years ago now when I was CIO for Department for Education, and he first taught me how to map. So it was Simon and James Finlay, and at that time I was leading a transformation of Department for Education, and we were looking at where could we create savings. So we were looking at what functions of the department we could actually use third parties to provide. So we were consolidating service desks and help desks, and we were moving out to the cloud. So yes, I've been using it in lots of different ways for a number of years.
Okay, so could you describe a situation in which you have used Wordley mapping to solve a difficult or maybe not so difficult business challenge or a problem that you were facing?
So I've used Wardley mapping, Chris, in lots of different ways. I've used it to to understand the IT landscape, to have a look at what should we be consolidating from a system perspective. I have used it to overlay contracts, to have a look at operating models to decide what should be run internally and what should be consumed with third parties. And then I've also used it I did a map to decide if there was space in the marketplace to actually build Difrent. And then I used it most recently to compare three offers that I had on Difrent. Three different companies wanted to buy us, and I used it most recently to compare those offers and map out who the best fit would be in way of an acquirer.
Awesome. Could you share such a map?
Okay. So this is the full slide deck, Chris, in way of mapping the business for sale. What I'll talk through are three different maps here, and these are the maps where I haven't, I've kind of protected the names of the innocent, so I haven't referenced the company names, but I'll talk through company A, B, and C, and how I kind of mapped those. And it's worth stressing that it was also one of my team who was involved in this work. So Dan Leakey actually did the legwork, which is often the way when you're the CEO. So in way of mapping out what was really important to Difrent, I've kind of overlaid here from Genesis through to commodity, and in way of the component parts that are most important to us are higher on the map. So the fact that company A has a lot of contacts and capability from a senior team perspective was a big positive for us. And the fact that the health and social care fit was a key area. 90% of our number is in health and social care. So again, that was a big tick. Financially, they're very sound because they have a forward order book for 5 years out. So again, another positive. The values were also very linked to the values from a different perspective. But the bits that concerned me were the fact that they were not user-centered in how they built services. So that for me was a real challenge. They are also a managed services company. So there's a different feel to an out-and-out professional services company. So the managed service bit, I thought culturally was so different to how we worked that could cause a challenge as well. The culture of the organisation was much more conservative than Difrent is, and that worried me a little bit. The core offering was heavy infrastructure and kind of production services, and again, that didn't feel like the perfect fit. So lots of positives and some negatives from company A. And as we move on to company B, they were health and social care focused, but not entirely. They were also strong public sector focus, which is, whilst our number is 90% for this year, our number will be 25% government for next. So again, there's a nice positive there. An out-and-out services business, so much similar to the work that we do. And the fact that they are user-centered and therefore understand the services we build is, a huge positive. A negative is that there appears to be competition within the group. So some of the acquisitions that they've made compete against each other for business, which for me feels counterproductive. And they were a relatively new company. And so for that reason, I felt that they were a slightly higher risk. They're also AIM listed, and that for me is an unknown. And so there was an element of risk around that aspect as well. And then company C, NHS focus, but not their core focus. So whilst they were healthcare, they were not entirely NHS. There was a business change opportunity because they were a product-based company. The fact that they are product-based is out and out. There's positive elements because we could provide the services wrapper, but the negative would be they are product and we're not a product company. International market for them was a huge driver, and user-centered didn't and still doesn't sit at the heart of what they do. They're also very waterfall in operation, so they're the polar opposite of how we roll. We're quite an agile business. VC funded, which is neither a positive nor a negative, but the valuation of the company did worry me a little bit because they're valued as a product company at 100 times, and we are a services business. So they were the maps, Chris, that I shaped up in way of comparing. And as you can see from my slides, at face value, the offers look like apples for apples, but it took digging into those maps to have a look to see, what really was going to be the best bet for us in way of a company to buy us.
Can I ask you how much did it take to create those maps and do those analysis for those companies?
I would say a matter of hours, possibly a couple of days, but you've got to bear in mind that we were going through due diligence. So, from a personal standpoint, I like to make a decision on gut feel, but I use Wardley mapping to take the emotion out and evidence my decision making. So I've often questioned whether I use it the right way, but I use it the way that works for me. But so because we were doing due diligence, we understood a lot about them, and the initial view of what they were and building the maps came towards the end of some of that due diligence process. Okay. So does that make sense? So it probably, if we'd done the other way around, would have taken longer.
Yeah, I understand it. So is the decision already made?
Yeah, the decision's made. So Panoply bought Difrent about 8 weeks ago, and Panoply is company B here. And so Panoply bought us about 8 weeks ago, and yeah, I mean, the one thing I think when you have set up and built a company that you want more than anything is if they're buying you, the values have to be aligned, but also you want them to be what they told you they were going to be when you went through that process. That's the single most important thing, and that's exactly what has happened.
Congratulations. That was, I think, the most significant episode I had a chance to look at during those interviews. Thank you so much. What would be your advice to people starting their adventure with Wardley mapping?
I think get in there and start to do the maps, because I remember Simon saying to me, you'll learn to map in a matter of hours, days, months. And I was slow to mapping, because in a lot of ways I don't see myself as being that strategic, which is probably incorrect. But I mean, I wouldn't make a good chess player, Chris, put it that way. I'm a bit too impulsive. But the bit for me with mapping is you've got to try it. You've got to accept that it's not going to be 100% right ever. And it's as much about the conversation and the dialogue as it is about the actual map. And I think that's the bit for me. So being able to have that conversation and challenge, get some of that stuff out on the table is absolutely key. And I guess having had the skill to do it for a number of years now, the mapping has started to get more complex in some of the things that we map and how I use them. But equally, I've had conversations before, deeply philosophical conversations about mapping, and those conversations go over my head because I use mapping as a business tool. So I've been teaching mapping before where people say, well, how far do you go? If you're making a cup of tea, are you going as far as milking the cow? And I'm thinking, my mind just doesn't work like that. My mind is very, what's the business value here? But I respect the philosophical debate. But for me, I use it as a business tool.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel, again for the interview and for your time.
No problem at all. My pleasure.